My name is Ryan and I'm in recovery. I thought it would be worthwhile kind of sharing, I guess, like a day in the life of my addiction, kind of the lengths I would go to mask what was happening. A lot of people, as I mentioned in the last video with Amy, kind of ask about how I kept it from her or whether she knew and stuff like that. So I thought I'd kind of talk about how I did keep it secret, not just from Amy but also in exes. I've had a couple of long-term relationships. Previously I was engaged to be married and lived with owned a house with my ex-partner. So you can imagine the kind of lies and deceit that were involved in keeping it from someone that I lived with. So yeah, when I did live with my ex, I would often use, whilst being in a flat with her, and keep it a secret from her. There was one time in particular where we actually kissed and she said she could taste it on me, and I denied it. And basically I didn't even come up with an excuse. I basically just lied, kind of gaslit her, I guess, and just was like, you're imagining it, it's not true. And that's a lot of the time, especially in my heavy using, I wouldn't even bother trying to come up with excuses. I would literally just deny until she kind of run out of steam and had no choice but to let it go. But then with Amy, when we don't live together, so what I would try and kind of manage my addiction, hide it from her more. I would do things like, if we were going to go on a date on a Saturday night, I would like use Wednesday, Thursday, try not to use on the Friday with the plan of being kind of refreshed and ready to go on our date on the Saturday. But often, as I mentioned in previous videos, with my peak of using, I kind of lost the ability to stop when I planned to, and I'd just keep going, and then I'd go and see her and I hadn't slept, and yeah, I'd be doing so much cocaine that my nose would be all cracked and I'd be blocked up and things like that. And yeah, I kind of almost developed like a little routine to try and cover it up. I'd do things like I'd put Vaseline on my nose to cover up the dryness and the blood and the cracks. I would take like caffeine tablets to try and give me energy when I hadn't slept for 3 days and I'm trying to seem like I've got, you know, a bit of life in me when we're at dinner or on a date or whatever. I'd often tell her that I'd had some work idea and I'd be up all night working. That's maybe why I seemed a bit tired. I told her I had a problem with my sleep, which I mean I do, well I did, and was always convinced I was someone that had a problem with my sleep, but actually in recovery, since I've been keeping a routine of going to bed and getting up at the same time of the day, my sleep's been fine. So it turns out I think it was maybe just yeah, my erratic lifestyle that was stopping me from sleeping. Yeah, I'd even lean on like mental health. I'd lie and say that I was maybe having depression, which I guess I was, but it was, you know, it's very much induced by my using. It's not something I really have to handle so much in recovery. I definitely get lows, but not what I would define as depression. But it's more, what the picture I want to kind of paint is that, like, addiction isn't just a homeless person on the street with no job. It's like addiction can be a successful functioning person on the outside that actually has this inner thing that they're hiding. This kind of like, the way I've always thought about it is it's almost like this kind of monster on my back that I'm like feeding, that's getting bigger and bigger, and I'm unable to control it, and it's getting harder and harder to hide. And it would be almost like talking in my ear and taking up all my headspace and my thoughts, making it, I was unable to kind of then be present in my relationship. I would be like, you know, I would engineer things so that when we would go on a date, I would say I'm not feeling that well halfway through the date, so that I'd know that when the dinner finished it wouldn't be weird that I just wanted to go home and to bed straight away. All these different things, and at the time I thought I was masking it and it was fine, and Amy didn't have any idea, but as she's mentioned in the previous video, she saw periods of me being clean and then saw the difference when I wasn't, and the fact that I was kind of dead behind the eyes, and the fact that I went from wanting to do loads of stuff and be active and be outside or be going on dates and having fun times to suddenly wanting to just be in bed or wanting to stay in and eat shit food and stuff like that. So yeah, it's not this obvious thing that you think it is. It can be hidden. And yeah, I think pay attention to the subtle signs. Don't just look for these big obvious things. Pay attention to if someone seems withdrawn, if they're maybe not replying to messages, if they're seemingly tired all the time, if they've got a blocked nose. You know, these are all then subtle indicators that something's maybe not right and they might need help.